It's monitored a constant spate of cyber attacks on companies and agencies for months, and now the Morrison Government is striking back, going public to call it out. The targets span everything from political parties to owners of infrastructure and health services. The Prime Minister is blaming an unnamed foreign government, but the ABC's been told he's firing a shot across the bow of China. National Affairs correspondent Govt Jennett begins our coverage at Parliament House.
Deep beneath the surface, over 9,000 kilometres, fibre cables connecting Australia to the world are glowing with so much traffic. They've become an unmissable beacon, watched silently for months from Canberra, until the time came to call it out.
You could describe it as malicious.
And by the Prime Minister's description of the targets, brazenly broad.
All levels of government, industry, political organisations, education, health, essential service providers and operators of other critical infrastructure.
The targets spread far and wide. Some cyber hits were thwarted, but the many attempts all had a common motive: to disrupt, to pry and to steal data. So, who did it?
This has been done by a state-based actor.
They're not naming names, but they are dropping clues.
There are not a large number of state-based actors that can engage in this type of activity.
It's not hard to work out. Russia, Iran, Israel and maybe North Korea have significant state-directed cyber capabilities, but they're not the suspects. The ABC's been told it's the mega machine of China's cyber forces behind the hits.
If a nation state is in those systems and engaging in espionage, then that's a very bad thing.
Australia might never officially blame Beijing, and industry analysts don't know as much about the techniques being used as government agencies like the Signals Directorate, but they do see value in a government publicly blowing the whistle.
There are state actors and there are always malicious parties that want to try and get valuable data, so be aware of that.
No one's yet uncovered any large-scale theft of personal information, but nor would all system owners, whether public or private, necessarily know if there had been. Boris Johnson and intelligence allies being briefed by Scott Morrison and information provided to the premiers and Anthony Albanese.
There is no difference between the government and the opposition on these issues. None.
Even sticking to the coded term state-based actor, Australia's charging headlong into another dispute with Beijing. It's doing it deliberately in the name of defending Australia's sovereignty. But as we've seen with trade, tourism and pandemic diplomacy, there will be consequences when China bridles. The form, the timing and the cost are now its to determine. Govt Jennett, ABC News, Canberra.
And China has hit back at those cyber attack claims, labelling the accusations as completely baseless. Let's bring in our China correspondent Bill Birtles now. Bill, the Foreign Ministry has just spoken there. What's the reaction?
Well, Matt, the Foreign Ministry is laying the blame for the entire thing on an Australian think tank based in Canberra, the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, ASPI. Now, for a few weeks, the Foreign Ministry has had ASPI in its sights because this is a think tank that regularly publishes research about China's activities abroad and its growing influence. Just about a week or so ago, it published one on China's United Workfront Department, efforts to co-opt support overseas and to marginalise opponents of the Chinese Communist Party. So perhaps this is the reason why ASPI is still front and centre of mind when the Chinese government thinks about Australia. So today, the spokesman Zhao Lijian simply said, "I believe what you're referring to all comes from ASPI. This is a think tank that has many times has attacked China and makes completely baseless claims about China."
It has no reputation at all. And the attacks and blames coming from this institute against China is totally baseless and nonsense.
And Matt, interestingly enough, the Foreign Ministry, unprompted, launched a different attack against Australia today, talking about how overnight Australian diplomats were involved in an effort to stifle a UN Human Rights Commission investigation into US racism. The Foreign Ministry said that this shows Australia's global diplomacy has a double standard, and it lectured and gave some advice to Australia: if you want to play on the global stage, you shouldn't be a pawn or a proxy of the United States.
All right, Bill Birtles in Beijing.